Hello, everyone. I am Lily May, and welcome to another Glambitious Virtual Summit. I wanted to do something related to self-love. So today's summit is called Unapologetically You. Many of us as ambitious women, we're outspoken, we like colorful attire, and I feel like it's very important that we be reminded that we can fully show up as who God designed us to be, and that we don't have to fit into a box because we're all called to great things. If this is your first time tuning in, I encourage you to visit hervisibility.com. Again, that's hervisibility.com because I have a freebie that you can access to learn a few tips that are going to help you increase your revenue and recognition this season. I also have a membership where I bring you opportunities to be seen and heard. I bring you podcasts from around the country to apply for. I bring you speaking opportunities. Right now in the membership, there's a $3,300 paid speaking opportunity that you can apply for. And anyone that decides to become a member today gets to also grace the cover of one of the print magazines. So that's just a little gift that I want to give anyone that decides to invest in their visibility because I feel like 2026 is going to be a phenomenal year for all of us who really tap into our purpose and decide to be seen and be heard unapologetically. Okay. And if anyone who's watching this replay is curious about the Glambitious platform that I built, I started this platform in 2013, and the purpose of this platform is to elevate women of all facets. So many women that join my community and that come as speakers, they are speaking for the first time. Sometimes I have speakers who are speaking around the country and around the world, like Dr. Cheryl Wood, who's an award-winning speaker. I've had even Chrisette Michelle, Grammy award-winning Chrisette Michelle, speak on my platform. I've also had Candy Bird speak when we used to do our power calls. We had Candy Bird. So this is a platform that's very inclusive of speakers around the world. And if you're interested in joining us virtually, or you're interested in meeting us at Essence Festival this summer or Martha's Vineyard, head over to theglamceo.com to join us as a speaker. Now, my next speaker is Miss Ashley, and we actually met on Thread. This is the power of networking. So, Ashley, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so hey everybody, my name is Ashley. A lot of people call me Fire Ash. And I have two companies. I have Fire Ash Media, which is a branding and marketing company, but I also have a company that I'm actually launching this year. It's called Millionaire Mindset X, and it's basically teaching people about identity and purpose. And I also have a podcast, which Lily's going to be on. But I really want to be able to just share what the Lord told me to share on tonight. And so I have this affirmation that I do with a lot of my clients when it comes to building confidence. And so I want to read it for you guys, and then I'll just share a little bit of what the Lord told me. It's called the Boss Lady Affirmation. So as we know, this is a self-love summit. And so it says, I am who he says I am. I can do what he says I can do. I can, I will, and I do. I can because he has given me the strength. I will because purpose requires actions. I do because faith without works is dead. I'm walking in my purpose. I'm showing up with confidence. I'm a doer, a go-getter, and an executor. No setback, no distraction, no doubt will stop me. I'm favored, I'm chosen, I'm called, and everything I need is already in me. Today, I choose to walk in my boss girl energy. Dear self, it's time to boss up, bestie. And the reason I read that is because I believe that many women similar to me have experiences where you might have had low self-esteem. You might have not believed that you were worthy. It's a lot of people who don't even understand the purpose that God has assigned to them because they're still living in their past. And for me, the reason why I can now stand here today and operate from a place of boldness and confidence is because I remember when I was at my lowliest. God met me where I was, and I asked God, I said, Lord, if you could just show me how to see myself the way you see me, maybe I can start treating myself differently. And I went on this journey where God started removing the scales. He started dismantling the lies where I thought I was not good enough, the lies where I thought I was invisible and that no one would see me, the lies where I thought that I would have to continue to live in a place of poverty. I started to realize that the lies that were fed to me were not the truth. And it took for me to get to know my Father, for me to be able to see who I am. And it's not just about knowing who you are, it's about knowing who you are in Christ. Because when you know who you are in Christ, he says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so God started showing me that I didn't understand my identity, because if I did, I would start to act on the boldness that he gave me. I would stop trying to pretend like he didn't call me to do great and mighty things. And so when I put together this Boss Up Bestie affirmation, I realized that God had taken me through a process. And we all know processing and being processed is not easy, is not something we all like, but I had to be processed. And so I wanted to share with you a few things that I had to discover in my process. He told me that it was time for me to take on my mantle. Just like when Elijah had passed away and Elisha came in, he had to take up the mantle and be able to carry on the position. And so there were 5 things that God told me. Number 1, I needed to become aware. You can never fulfill purpose if you're not aware of who you are. Because some people on this earth, they were created to be movers and shakers. But because they don't know their identity, they don't move according to who he called them to be. And so a part of my gifting is I see. God shows me who people are and I call it out. And it's not just me. It's a lot of wonderful women around the world, men who are doing the same thing. But I believe that if you are learning to love on yourself, a part of loving on yourself is learning, who am I? And you can't know who you are without Christ. The next thing is you have to accept who you are. You see, there was Moses in the Bible who he didn't know that he was called to be a shepherd. And a part of him had this fear that when God told him to go to Pharaoh, that he was incapable of doing that. When it comes to loving yourself, you have to believe in not just who God said you are, but you have to accept it as truth, because God can sell you a thing, but if you don't come in agreement with it, you won't move according to what he told you. And so God was sharing with me, one thing I had to understand is he told me I was a boss. I am a royal priesthood. I am heir to the throne. When I started to learn who I am and who he is, my mindset started to shift. And so now I don't look at things from a grasshopper mentality. I look at it like, if he told me I can go take over territory in his namesake, I can go take territory. If he told me that I can have faith of a mustard seed that can move mountains from here to there, I can do that. But the only way that I was able to start doing that is I had to start to learn to love myself. One of the things God showed me is that how can I not love the very thing he was willing to die for? I love how this summit is called Unashamed. We're unashamed because when God called, when he called Caleb and Joshua to go into the land, they were unashamed and they were bold and they went forth without being afraid. And I believe that there may be a woman on here who needs to just be told, chin up, sis, don't be afraid to be exactly who he called you to be. Even when people might try to look at you as less than, don't look at who you were in the past. Look at who he's calling you to be today in the present. And so my other 3 things is he told me that a part of my process was I had to arise. I can accept the truth. I can be aware of the truth, but I got to arise to the position. And a part of arising is when you say, for God I live and for God I die. That means that if he said something about you before you were ever born, if he said something about you when you were in your mother's womb, if he already said something about you, because there's a promise that's attached to you. If he already said that I would be this thing, that I need to arise to the position and activate it. I have to walk in a daily activated mental space that even when life tries to tell me I'm not this thing, I will always believe that I'm this thing. I'm exactly who he says I am. And so the last thing I want to share is you have to remember. You got to remember exactly who you are. It's not according to your standards. It's not according to human standards. You have to remember, who did God say I am? Because a part of my journey and learning to love myself was I had to learn who I am and whose I am. And I have to remember it on a daily basis, because the world will try to trick you into thinking that you're not who you think you are. And so just to keep my time together, the one thing that I want to truly leave as far as an impression on self-love is I had came from a background of just being so low self-esteem. I didn't have any worth towards myself. And when God started to reveal who I was to him, I realized that if he thinks I'm precious, then I should treat myself the same way. And a part of being able to be a servant of God is knowing how to love. He said the greatest commandment is to love the Lord with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. And it's also the second one is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so in order for us to be great stewards, in order for us to be great servants, we have to love ourselves. And if you don't love yourself, it'll hinder you. The podcast is like I said, it's called Mindset X. And the whole gist of it is, instead of millionaire with the AIRE, God told me it's HEIR, because he told me inheritance is very important, identity is very important. And we have to understand who we are, because when you know who you are, your mindset shifts. And so my podcast is launching on March 3rd. It'll be every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to follow me, I am on social media on all platforms. She is Fire Ash. They call me Fire Ash for a reason, because I get turned up whenever I'm talking about God. And yeah, that's how you can connect with me.
Yes, yes. No, I love the fire. I love the energy. So thank you for joining us because that's just what I needed. So our next dynamic speaker is going to be Miss Rosalind. You can come on off mute and take it away.
Well, good afternoon, ladies. I am Rosalind Luck, and I help high achieving women rebuild their identity after or when the survival begins. Not the polished version of them, not the performing version, but the whole version. Today, we're not talking about surface level self care. We're talking about the courage to love yourself back to life. I want to anchor this in a message scripture. And above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And that comes from Proverbs 4 and 23. Now, as I said, I'm Rosalind Luck. I am an author. I am a speaker, a mom, a grandma, lovingly known as Gigi. And I'm an evangelist in the Lord's church. But I'm also a coach. And I help women that have been in abusive relationships through domestic violence or whatever type of uh, trauma they've endured. I help them to find their voice. So when I think of guarding your heart, not hiding it, not hardening it, not uh, keeping it for safekeeping, I think about guarding it in such a manner that we ask ourselves the question: what if the version of you that you're trying to become is actually the version of you that trauma tried to silence? What do I mean by that? Self love is not about bubble baths. It's not about mirror affirmations solely. It's not just posting know your worth quotes online. Self love is a decision, right? It's a decision to stop abandoning yourself. And for many of us, especially high achieving, strong, faith filled women, that abandonment starts with when we go into survival mode or when we kick survival mode in. So, number one, trauma teaches us how to survive, not how to love ourselves. Trauma doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like we grew up too fast, being the responsible one all the time, being the shoulder for everyone else to lean on, staying quiet to keep the peace, shrinking to stay accepted, overperforming to feel valued. Trauma trains our nervous system to stay alert. So we're anticipative, we're bracing ourselves, and we're trying to always protect ourselves. But here's the truth: the survival version of you cannot experience deep self love. Did you know that? When you're in survival mode, you're so guarded, sometimes you can't experience that deep self love because survival whispers in your ear, don't trust. Survivor whispers, don't rest, be on alert. It means you're feeling too much, you need too much, or you're expecting too much. So it tells you to keep all those things close. Don't do those things, right? Don't feel too much, don't need too much, don't expect too much. Just stay guarded. And you cannot heal what you refuse to feel. And that's a big statement in a lot of traumatic situations. If I don't feel it, how can I heal from it? That's like covering it with dirt, covering the seed with dirt and not expecting it to grow, right? Number two, self love is an act of reclamation. And what do I mean by that? Self love is a declaration. I no longer agree with the story that pain wrote for me. It is the moment you realize you are not what happened to you. You're not the rejection, not the betrayal, not the silence, not the abandonment. You are the woman who survived it all. And yes, that matters, but surviving is one step. Healing is step two. And then the healing requires coverage. How do we get the coverage? There are three shifts that move you from surviving to healing. And I want you to heal trauma and build real self love. And in order to do that, you have to shift. You have to shift from blame to awareness. Blame keeps you stuck, awareness sets you free. So you want to ask yourself, what patterns did pain create? Where do I overcompensate? Where do I self sabotage? Because that's real big for us. And where do I shrink? Not to blame yourself, but to understand yourself. Healing begins when you get curious instead of critical, right? You have to be curious about the situation. Not always, why did this happen to me? Because why not? What makes me any different than any other person? But why am I stuck here? In order for the healing to begin, we have to understand those things. Shift two comes from performance to permission, right? Many of us learned that love was conditional. How we dress, how we look, how we smell, what clothes we put on, what colors we wear, how we move. So we perform, we do those things. Sometimes it's not even for us in the corporate world. You have to look a certain way. We have to have our hair a certain way. We have to have certain clothes on. So we overgive, we overachieve, we overextend, and we overexplain. But self love says, I give myself permission to exist without earning my worth. I'm already worthy. You don't have to prove your value. You don't have to hustle for approval, and you do not have to bleed for belonging. You are worthy because you are you. And our third shift is from silence to boundaries, right? Trauma thrives in silence. It keeps us bound. Healing requires a voice. Self love sounds like this: that doesn't work for me, so I'm not going to be able to participate. Self love sounds like I need more time. That's a bit of a rush. Self love sounds like I deserve a little bit more than that. And my favorite one, and one that is very necessary in life today, self love sounds like no, just no. No explanation needed, just simply no. Boundaries are not walls, they are wisdom. And every time you set a boundary, you teach your nervous system, I am safe with myself. Trauma lives in the body. Healing must live there too. You cannot think your way out of trauma. Your body remembers that your mind tries to forget, right? That anxiety, that hyper independence, inability to rest, people pleasing, and fear of being seen. Those are productive adaptations, right? So self love includes regulating your nervous system, your emotional safety, releasing shame, and rebuilding your identity. That is deep work, and it's also sacred work. So I want to leave with you a couple of things. Number one, you are not too broken to heal. Some of you believe that I've been through too much, it's too late, and this is who I am. That's trauma talking. You're not broken, you've adapted. And adaptation is evidence of strength, but strength is not the same as healing, right? Healing is when you stop carrying what you no longer have ownership of. Healing is when your identity is no longer built on what hurt you. And it's also when you become unapologetically you. So here's your invitation: stop abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. Stop shrinking, stop silencing, and stop self neglecting. Choose to love yourself intentionally, choose to heal strategically, and choose to grow with structure. Because self love without structure fades, self love without support stalls, and self love without strategy cycles. I am Rosalind Luck. I am owner and operator of the Power of You Academy, where we operate through the framework of the crown. I help women rebuild confidence, resilience, optimism, willpower, and non negotiables. This is not surface motivation. This is identity reconstruction. This is trauma informed transformation. This is leadership from the inside out. If you're ready to heal patterns at the root, if you're ready to build unshakable boundaries, if you're ready to lead yourself with authority and become the woman you are always meant to be, the one God created us to be, I invite you to connect with me. You can reach me at www.rosalindluck.com for more information. And I'm on all of the social medias as Rosalind Luck or the Power of You Coaching. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you all. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Lily.
Thank you. That was wonderful. That was like a warm cup of tea. I was over here, you know, like when I'm watching TV sometimes in my house alone, I'll talk to the TV. And I was over here on mute talking like, yes, period. Self-love sounds like everything that you said was so on point, Rosalind. And I love when you said that self-love is like permission because it's giving yourself permission to have needs, to have boundaries. It's giving yourself permission to be who you are, to be who God has called you to be. And I feel like so often the world tries to dim our light and make us feel like we're not enough based on the challenges that we've had or how we look on the exterior. And self-love is permission to be seen and permission to be heard. So, oh, that was chef's kiss. Okay. So we're going to go to our next speaker, Mrs. Barnes.
Yes, thank you, Lily. Okay. Ladies, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you guys today. I am so excited to be here. Self-love is one of my favorite topics, is what I talk about all the time. So um, I'll start there. So my name is Kamara. I am the founder and owner of Tiaras and Lipstick. You can find me at tiarasandlipstick.com. I am a personal life coach for women. I am a motivational speaker. I create small digital products and I actually do career coaching as well as spiritual coaching. I do all the things, right? And it's all focused on women. So I've talked to some men over time, but women is my priority. Hold on, put my timer on so I don't go over because I can be very chatty as well. So, okay. Um, I'm here to talk to you guys today and to challenge your minds. So I want you to open your mindset and I want you to realize that self love, how we see it, I feel is not necessarily how it's designed to be. And I'm going to challenge all the women that are listening today to think to yourself, what if you can't trust yourself? What happens if you're not sure how to love yourself? And what happens if you don't know how because you've been conditioned not to? And I'm going to challenge you to think that your mindset and how you think and talk to yourself is the ultimate gift of self love. And you can take that on a spiritual aspect. You can think about that in your career and your family life. There's many different aspects to think about that. So I'm going to start there and think and say out loud for you to think about yourself and how you treat yourself on a daily basis. If there is something that you've done for yourself that you feel is a treat, and if sometimes you feel guilty about that, I have found that in talking to women, a lot of women feel guilty if they take on some type of pleasure or some type of delight to themselves, or even if they're gentle with themselves or speak kindly to themselves. I think they're often hard on themselves and they often feel guilty about that. And I think some of that is because we spend a lot of time people pleasing. And I talk a lot about that with a lot of my clients because we're so busy taking care of others. We're caregivers, we're mothers, we're wives, we're daughters, we're sisters. Um, and I think over time, that people pleasing becomes ingrained in us. And then eventually society weighs in and that becomes ingrained in us. And over time, we're not really acting and living for ourselves. We're really living for other people, even if we don't necessarily see ourselves doing that. We're conditioned like that. And we're conditioned like that from being a young child. If you think back, at least if you had a childhood like mine, if you had parents and family that were around you to care, you were always trying to please them. Who didn't want to please their parents? Who didn't want to bring home good grades? Who didn't want to impress teachers? Who didn't want to be popular with friends? And then, we get older as women, and then society tells us what else we should do. And then all of a sudden, by evolution, we're conditioned to act a certain way and be a certain way, right? So, with that mindset, if our chemistry and everything around us has kind of dictated who we should be, how we should act, how we should live, then how can we trust ourselves to know what that self-love is? Like where we draw that line in the sand. And that's where I think we need to take a pause and realize that how we talk to ourselves and how we interact with ourselves on a daily basis is so important. And that's the ultimate gift of self love. The bubble baths, the manicures, the pedicures, the massages are great and they're wonderful, but It's almost like society tells us that's the self-love that we need and deserve. But is it? Is the massage, once the massage is over and you go home and you leave and you get off the table, like, is that all you need when you go back to the daily grind? Is that all you need to survive and get on to the next day? So I'm challenging you to think that the shift in your mindset is what you need, and how you think about yourself is what you need, and how you talk to yourself is what you need. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I want you guys to realize that the body and the brain, through neuroscience, has proven that thoughts, actions, negative comments, criticism are all processed as pain. And I didn't actually realize that over a period of time. Like, I've learned this and I've studied it for a while. There have been books written about it. And ultimately, if someone insults you, if someone says something negative about you, your body doesn't necessarily realize that that's not like a punch. It's not a gut punch. It's not a slap. Your body and your mind is going to respond to that based on the fact that they think that you've been hurt, because it hurts your inner being, right? What you don't realize is that although your brain processes your nervous system processes, and your brain processes that as pain, the way you talk to yourself is processed the same way. So if you talk negatively to yourself, if you think negatively to yourself, that's processed as pain. And then what happens? Your body reacts to that pain and it shuts down. So you get foggy, you can have chest pain, you can have shallow breathing. There's all these different symptoms that you can have when your body stops and says, oh my goodness, I've been hurt. So your mindset, the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, the thoughts you say, the criticisms you throw at yourself, I could have done that better. Oh, I got to get my act together. Oh my goodness, I'm a hot mess, which I used to say all the time, are negative aspects. And you're saying it to yourself and your body is responding as if someone is beating you up. It's verbal abuse that you're giving to yourself. So I'm here today to basically tell you that the way you talk to yourself and the way you interact and the way you think is basically and ultimately the way you can give yourself the best self-love. It's the positive thoughts. It's the positive thinking. It's the being intentional when you start to think about yourself, when you start to say certain things that pop into your head based on a circumstance or an event. And I want you to realize how you feel after you've said that to yourself. Because I don't even think we realize how many thoughts that we have in a given day that may or may not have an impact on the way we feel. And the way we feel and how we self-love ourselves and how we talk and think to ourselves basically has a physical response that we don't necessarily realize either. It can come across as a headache or a stomach ache, chest pain, like I said, heavy breathing. So my favorite quote that I basically tell a lot of my clients is, security is a feeling created by your thoughts. And we all want to feel secure. So your focus, what you should focus on and practice, is the relationship with yourself. And the relationship with yourself is your thoughts about yourself. And I just want to challenge you to think that way, because that's where it starts, and every other action and every other response and every other action plan that you take beyond that is based and starts with your mind and how you think about yourself. And you don't necessarily realize it until you stop and intentionally take a step back and start to examine what you're saying to yourself, not necessarily what everybody else is saying. We need to stop the people pleasing, but that's a whole separate topic. So if I can leave you guys with anything, is to take a step back. And every time you have some type of thought, specifically if you realize that it's negative, is to erase it and try to flip it to a positive, and try to think about how you can be a little bit more kind in your thoughts. And then some of your actions will actually start to follow. And you'll get clarity about what it is that you actually want to do, whether it's a purpose, whether it's what you actually want to do in regards to self-love, the things that you might actually want to treat yourself to in life. And you'll start to see a pattern change over time. And I think that's it. That's pretty much all I'm here to say. Now, wrapping it up in 10 minutes is not necessarily easy, but once again, I'm Kamara. Tiarasandlipstick.com is where you can find me. I'm also on social media. It's Tiaras and Lipstick. And I actually have a podcast where I talk about a lot of this and I go through steps and how to think a little bit more positively about yourself and take steps forward. So my podcast is called Kamara Speaks. It actually dropped this year on January 1st. So come and find me and drop a note. So thank you. Thank you so much, Lily, for allowing me this opportunity today.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much for joining. I look forward to checking out your podcast as well. Congrats on that. I love that you painted the picture of how our body internalizes negative thoughts and criticism because I don't think we realize how hard we are on ourselves. Ambitious women, especially if you were the firstborn child, like there's a whole thing. If you're the firstborn child or the firstborn daughter, there's like an innate sense of criticism that just naturally, that we naturally deal with in being like the firstborn or the firstborn daughter because we want to be perfect patties. And I know I used to be guilty of that. I was a high achiever, as most of us, were. And so being applauded for, achieving all the time, it just made me hyper critical of myself to where I always wanted to show up perfect. I always wanted to get the best grades and it just kind of stayed with me into adulthood. And I had to realize like, hey, no one's perfect. And what really attracts people to you is when you're just authentic because we're all having a human experience. And so, I think the work that you spoke on and the work that you're doing with women, I think is much, much needed because once we are kinder to ourselves and once we have more confidence in who we are, I think then we can be more impactful in the work that God has called us to. Now, our next speaker is no stranger to the Glambitious brand. You've seen her on our magazine covers. Miss Jacqueline has really been involved with the platform. One thing about my platform, in addition to having speaking opportunities like virtual events and in-person events, I also offer media packages where women can get interviews and magazine covers and podcasts and things of that nature. And Miss Jacqueline has definitely been able to appear on many of those platforms. So Jacqueline, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. All right. So my name is Jacqueline Bones. I am known as Nurse Jackie. I am also known as the Transformalist. It is a pleasure to be here on this on the summit for today. I am a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 22 years. I can't believe that I've been a nurse for this long. I love what I do. I was blessed as when being a young girl, knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I think that my gift from God is to be of service. And so I went into nursing and again, I love what I do. I'm at a stage in my life, I'm 48 years old now, and to where I have decided to pivot. I started my own business, the pandemic. I worked through the pandemic and it taught me a lot. And one of the things that the pandemic showed me was you have to do some of the things that you have in your heart. It was really tough to see people being sick, people passing away. But again, one of the greatest things I think that came out of me working with people during the pandemic was that life is short and you have to take a risk and you have to take a risk on yourself. And you have to go out there and do some of the things that you really want to do in life. I really love some of the things that some of the ladies have said. So I just took some notes here, some great notes. Willie Mae always does a great conference and summit. So Miss Rosalind Luck, she said, being authentically you, which is so important. And that has been a part of my new journey. I opened up a business to where I help people with wellness outside of healthcare. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. I've seen a lot, particularly being a minority in healthcare, that happens behind the scenes. And so I kind of wanted to go into business to help people really look good and feel good from the inside out, but giving them real and transparent information. I do a lot of things with supplements. I do lymphatic massage. Unfortunately, there's been a big pivot in my life. And so while I have not been able to do a lot of the hands-on work with people with IV infusions and doing a lot of detox teaching and a lot of the body shaping and wood therapy, I love AI. I think this is a great space, especially for minority women to really get into. And I really love AI. One of the things I told myself is if Beyonce can dance, sing, do clothing, do music, then why can't Nurse Jackie also do multiple things? I'm a nurse by career. That's my passion, but I have actually pivoted into the tech and AI space and I absolutely love it. Another thing that that Kamara has said was love yourself, right? And so this pivot, I prayed and prayed and prayed about how can I get people to take me serious being an AI consultant outside of being a nurse. I've been doing nursing for 22 years out of my life. How can I make that pivot? But part of me loving myself is really pushing myself to really hone my skills and really just just really showcase what I can do because it's something that I really love. And then to go back to what Lily May said is that the firstborn, I am the firstborn in my family, and I feel like that your family puts such high expectations on you because you're the first, and they don't know right then if there's going to be any more. So they put a lot of high expectations on you, and I've actually know what that feels like to be able to set the standard. I was the first in my family to go to college. I was the first in my family to get a master's degree, the first in my family to actually own a business. So I truly understand that pressure. Another thing I wanted to share is that I went out on a limb and I did a book that kind of coincides with all of the lady speakers here on the panel today, which is really great. And I did a book called Being Average at Best and Why That's Okay. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because there's a lot of talk about women, primarily minority women, in the red pill space that, being an older woman, who would want an older woman? There's a lot of relationship talk about women. And I just wanted to let women know that it's okay to be average. And when I say average, I mean maybe aesthetically average, but doesn't mean that you're average on the inside. And on the book, I promise to keep it real and authentic, offering you a concise but impactful message. You don't need 500 pages to learn one fundamental truth. You are enough, right? And I don't think that we as women tell ourselves that enough, that we are enough as we are. We can't control our DNA. We can't control how we come into this world, what we look like. That's from our mother and our father. And we're here and we just have to do the best that we can with what we have. So I wanted to do this summit is because I'm branching out into the AI space. I'm working with what I call AI cousins. I need to trademark that so nobody steals it. To where I work with people where it's not actually an AI avatar, it is a cousin of someone who has a purpose. And the reason why I went this way is because we are surrounded by so many fake things, right? Things we eat are artificial. The things we see on TV is artificial. So even though the AI person is not real, I wanted to present an AI person that actually has a purpose on why they are created, what their mission is, and that kind of thing. So I had my first client yesterday, and we created her AI cousin because she's a menopause coach. And I think it went over really, really well. One of the things I want to do is I want to work with AI with small business brands and older entrepreneurs because those are the people that are going to get lost in the sauce. So I would love to really hold classes, do small intimate teachings with getting them comfortable with ChatGPT, the questions that they need to ask, helping them build their own personal assistant with GPTs. This is the new pivot for me again, because I'm trying to be authentically myself. I'm a nurse. I love the wellness. Your body is my passion. I'm going to get back into it once I relocate to Florida. But right now, I feel like this is the space that God is putting me in. So you can follow me on Instagram. I'm the Transformalist _ Nurse Jackie. And my Facebook is Jacqueline Bones. You'll see a lot of things with my avatars on there. If you know of anybody that small entrepreneurs or whatever that needs help with AI, then have them reach out to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jacqueline. Yes, this was so good, because I definitely think that there has to be some support with helping people with navigating AI. Definitely, I feel like support is needed with navigating AI. Because here's the thing, because I love AI too. I think it's an amazing asset to a woman in business for sure. And I think that it really helps us expedite the things that we're trying to accomplish and do. However, I also think we have to have a balance so that people still get the real us. So like I am putting out a few AI images until I lose these 10 pounds, but people will still see, oh, on virtual, she's been eating the snacks during the snow. So you still want people to see the real you, even though, AI is what's next. It's what's new, and it's imperative that we learn how to incorporate it in our businesses. But we also don't want to go too far off the edge to where we're, comparing ourselves to perfect images that AI curates, and that we're losing our voice because of AI curating the messages, right? Because AI can, answer interview questions for you. It can create content for you, but you don't want to lose your voice, right? I feel like what always connects people to me is my voice. And so even if I use AI for content, I always add my tone, my energy, and my voice to it so that people can still feel me. They can still see the real me. And so they may see a little polished AI image today, but then the next day they're going to see, the real Lily live and living color. So I love that you're helping women navigate AI and incorporate it into their businesses. Again, we're here for the Unapologetically You virtual summit. And I was inspired to host this because, as we know, February is the month of love. And I was thinking, everyone talks about the romantic love, and it's not enough talk about the self love. And there's so many different facets of self love. Like one of my speakers mentioned, it's not just going to get manicures and pedicures, it's deeper than that. Self love shows up in our finances and how we spend our money and how we steward our money. That's a reflection of self love, right? How we show up in our wellness, how we show up in friendships, the boundaries that we do or do not have in relationships, all of these things, the thoughts that we think, our mindset, all of this is a reflection of self love. And I wanted to have different speakers speak on different facets of that, even our faith walk, as Ashley said earlier. Are we able to see ourselves as God sees us, right? Like that's really the true testament of self-love, is being able to see yourself as God sees you, and who he's called you to be. So we have one more speaker. She's definitely the last but not the least. Sharon, I'll let you go ahead, come off mute and take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sharon Crossan. I am the founder of the Be Lotus brand, Be Lotus Skincare, and Be Lotus Wellness. I am a nurse by vocation and also a wellness coach. And I also am the founder of a nonprofit, Still a Rose Society for Youth Empowerment and the Healing of Family Systems. So I just wanted to come along today and share something with you ladies, mostly about believing and the faith that we should have when it comes to healing and when it comes to self care. Many of the speakers spoke about self love, so we all get it that we have to love ourselves in order to evolve. You really have to have that love. But there's this other little part that sometimes we forget, and that's the self care part. And just like it was said, self-care is not about, it's not about traveling and doing IG pictures. It's not about having your nails done, your eyelashes done. Self-care stems from the inside, right? The outside, that's just the icing on the cake. So with that being said, I just wanted to share a story with you about a little girl that I had known at one point. And growing up, I had a friend that I wanted to be so much like. She could dance, she could sing, she was pretty, she was the best speller in our school, and she also had three big sisters and two big brothers. I wanted to be like her so much because she was this bubbly girl, and it just seemed like everyone was attracted to her. And then one day, she came outside to play and she wasn't the same anymore. She was just a different person. She wasn't that bubbly little girl anymore. It seemed that she was hiding something, or even maybe she didn't even know she was hiding something. So, with that being said, that little girl is me, Sharon. So, growing up, I was exposed to an adverse childhood experience at about the age of 5. And from then, I just totally changed. My emotional wellness changed, how I saw myself changed, how I saw myself, even within my family unit, changed. I basically saw myself not as much. I didn't really look at myself as much growing up. Like a lot of people that deal with trauma, they tend to overextend themselves. They tend to become overachievers. Me, on the other hand, I became an underachiever. I grew up with this ache that I didn't know where it was coming from. Like some people are with trauma, it's sexual abuse or it's domestic violence, which I have also experienced. For me, it was a little more subtle. I grew up in disconnection. So my body is wired actually for disconnection. So I'm working really hard to rewire my body for connection, because as I'm sitting here, my body is saying, run, run, run. But that is only a trauma response. And that is the response that we oftentimes get when there's no reason to feel that way. So I wanted to share a passage with you from Romans 12:2. As believers, we're all encouraged to be transformed by the renewing of our minds to find peace and discern God's will. So, what that says is that it doesn't matter where you come from, what you're going through, God is expecting you to transform. That is a part of our stewardship. He doesn't want us staying stuck. He doesn't want us hiding. He doesn't want us feeling shame. And I wanted to take this chance also to thank everybody who's out there in the virtual world, because this is actually my coming out party. I was that person. I was that person. I was ashamed. I wanted to hide myself. I didn't think that people would believe me when I said that I had experienced trauma because of the type of family that I grew up in. So those are the things that I would like to share with you. And regarding self-care, healing is a form of self-care. That is the best form of self-care that we can ever offer ourselves, is to heal. We have so many different things that are hanging over our shoulders. We're mothers, we're grandmothers, we work, we're wives. We have all these things. That doesn't define us. None of that defines who we really are. Okay, we are defined by the person that God created us to be. So I wanted to say, even if you're a woman of color, sometimes that burden is extra heavy, because people tend to think that Black women or other women of color are so very strong. Taking on that role is not a good thing for you. It really isn't a good thing for you, especially when you have unhealed trauma. What you're actually doing is numbing yourself. Taking on the role of the strong Black woman, the invincible woman, the superwoman, is just a form of numbing yourself to the care that you actually need. Because if you're thinking, I'm strong, I'm superwoman, then you don't need anything. So what we have to do as women and what we have to do as trauma survivors is to put ourselves first, put healing first. It's okay to take 10 minutes and walk away from the children. I know that it's important that you spend time with your children, and please do so. But it's fine for you to step off and to take some cold water, say a couple of words to God, do whatever you need to do for yourself. And for those people out there who are dealing with trauma, I know there's at least 1 to 2 people out there that have dealt with trauma or that are dealing with it now. Accept it. It happened. It had nothing to do with you. The person who traumatized you, it wasn't personal. It wasn't personal. That's the thing about trauma, is that it passes along, it passes along, it passes along. So in me healing myself, I've also been gifted to heal, do some ancestral healing. And when I say that, I just mean to say that we have some shared wounds. Many of us share the wounds that our mothers had. We share the same wound, because if our mothers didn't get what they needed, how can they possibly offer it to us? Right? So that's the one point that I want to bring to you, is that your wound that you may be suffering with is not all yours. It's not yours. You share that wound with at least one of your parents, or maybe even one of their parents. So let the weight come off of your shoulders. Know that it's not personal. And